I still believe in the ways of my people. That the Great Spirit told me, I will guide you and keep you every day. You see, I'm a born artist, I guess, and that wasn't my destiny to be an artist. And the only thing I know is how to read, and I know how to paint.
I think it's art that comes from his guts, from the dreams of his grandfather, from the atavistic dreams of a society that's lived for thousands of years as hunters in the north of Canada. He painted the animals that they hunt. He painted all the fears, all the hatreds. He painted the authentic heritage of his people.
He's certainly spiritual, definitely Canadian. He's brilliant. He's a painter extraordinaire. He's all of that. I think he's one of the greatest painters around.
Norval Morrisseau, the first Aboriginal painter publicly acclaimed in Canada as a great artist.
You give me 15 canvases here and give me a pencil. I'll sketch those things in 5 minutes.
Norval Morrisseau, a homeless heavy drinker rescued from self-destruction by a friend in the alleys of Vancouver.
I can see that in order to birth the kind of art that Norval Morrisseau has given us, the gift that he's given us, the incredible suffering that he's gone through to present that to us.
Norval used hallucinogens when he was very, very young, but he didn't see any use for them. Alcohol was the conductor that helped him go to a separate reality.
At the age of 72, Morrisseau still makes a point of attending retrospectives of his works. A welcome for an artist who has spent his entire creative life painting the visions of his people. Tonight's exhibit, a series of paintings in which Morrisseau visualizes the mythical native characters of a Cree legend for an animated film.
I've often wondered today, what message was I trying to get across at the time when I first started to paint? At that time, there was hardly anything known about the Indian people. The only thing that we ever did come across was that the native people were a bunch of savages and pagans and in need of salvation.
Early in the 20th century, the culture of Morrisseau's Ojibwe people was under siege. The elders clung to traditional beliefs, but Christianity called on the young to abandon the old ways. Growing up in Ontario's Sandpoint Reserve in the early 1940s, Morrisseau was a witness to the destruction of his culture.
Every nationality here in Canada look for its history. A white man could trace back himself right to the cave days. What the Indian got? Nothing.
But Morrisseau had a living link to his vanishing culture. His grandfather, Poten Nanagunas, was a shaman, a traditional spiritual leader.
Everything that he knew, he credited his grandfather for. And I think he put him up on a pedestal to such a point that he saw him as the answer to everything that was Ojibwe, was embodied in him, in his spirit.
And his grandfather had told him about all the Indian legends, particularly during the winter nights when they would sit together. He was very impressed all his life by these legends.
His grandfather's stories told him about Mishu Pishu, the most powerful spirit lurking in the underworld. His enemy is the Thunderbird, the master of the skies, of the upper world. They fight each other in search of a balance in the universe and in the soul of man.
When we got to know him better, he told me, I have to go down every few months to my grandfather and I buy his dreams. And I have to pay for these dreams. Because if I don't pay for these dreams, I can be struck dead. And I pay him in meat, and I pay him in whiskey. And all the paintings I do are the result of the dreams of my grandfather.
Norval is a paradox. His lack of education. Well, he went to school for 4 years and graduated from grade 2. So, Norval has no formal education to speak of. And yet, I think he's the only real genius I've ever met. It's just incredible what this man can do.
Morrisseau was 9 years old when a carefree childhood was suddenly over. He was sent away to a Catholic boarding school where he was far from his grandfather. His language was forbidden, his culture ignored, and strange things happened after class.
I remember he was saying he was raped by the priests. They made an imprint, obviously, and it makes an imprint throughout his whole career.
Norval was, of course, abused in the school. Well, Norval told me that he liked it. And for me, when I hear that, it bothers me. Because what it tells me is that there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of denial that exists deep, deep down. Because who likes this? Who really likes to be raped? Nobody.
Morrisseau says the rape at St. Joseph's involved 3 priests. For decades, countless Native children suffered a similar fate all across Canada. At 13, Morrisseau ran away from school, returned to his grandfather's house, and started drinking.
Well, sometimes he throw me out, I told you, no? Get drunk, sometimes he throw me out. But next day he liked me again. We get along together.
You ever drink together?
Sure. We're gonna come in now.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You buy us a bottle, we drink together.
Oh. Yeah.
The young Morrisseau was torn between 2 worlds. Ojibwe Christians rejected the paintings because they were ashamed of what they saw as a pagan heritage. And traditional Indians resented Morrisseau for revealing what's sacred and secret.
The community, they were a little bit disgruntled because these legends were supposed to be just only for the Ojibwe people. He had a very hard road to hoe when he first started his career.
Am I doing the right thing for my people by portraying these things? This was the taboo I was breaking, to go ahead and paint the concepts of my people, the religious aspects of my people. It was a continuous struggle, a very, very deep struggle within myself. Because you see people are tormented with serpents in my paintings. This is me. It is a guilt complex. I'm portraying myself, my sinful nature I'm portraying.
But the torment became easier to bear when the Great Spirit appeared to Morrisseau in a vision.
From now on, he said, you could do whatever you want to do. I will always be with you from this day on until the day you die. And as long as you're with me, and as long as you remember this vision, he said, you could do. And then this is when I started to paint.
The young Morrisseau was troubled by much more than religious conflicts. He was a chronic alcoholic who had never known his father, and he lived in a shack on a garbage dump. But in 1962, without ever taking a single art lesson, Norval Morrisseau became the first native publicly celebrated in Canada as a modern artist painting on canvas.
I'm going to paint the Indian version, what the physical universe looks like, and the astral heaven on top. I am an example of my people. The responsibility for me today is to be a great artist.
Norval Morrisseau has filled his studio on Vancouver Island with paintings created during a feverish decade of work, and with native art from all over North America.
My environment concerns me. Gives you a nice feeling. So this is why I bring all these beautiful things, to liven up the place.
Well, Norval is a collector. You know, over the years, we've met many gallery owners, we've been to many galleries. With revenue that he would make from an art show, he would say, well, let's go and spend $20,000 today or $30,000 today. Just seemed like we constantly did that. We constantly went shopping for what I'd call today inspiration.
Morrisseau no longer paints here, but as he draws the occasional sketch, he can still warm up to some of the old creative fire.
The spirit comes through you. It's a creative, very creative force, you see. You could be a singer, you could be a writer, you could be an artist, you could be anything, if you allow that spirit to flow.
The young Morrisseau was on a spiritual journey, studying the ancient symbols and ceremonies of the Ojibwe, hoping to become a shaman. But he also needed a job, and he moved to mining country in northern Ontario. At 19, he was sick with tuberculosis, and in the hospital met the Cree woman who would be his wife. Morrisseau and Harriet Kakigamek married and started a family. They had 7 children. He worked in a gold mine and painted on the side, even though he knew almost nothing about art history, brushes, and pigments. Morrisseau went door to door, selling his work to the people of Red Lake. In this mining town, many were indifferent, but the local doctor's wife was an art collector, and when she walked into Fergie McDougall's store one day in 1958, she changed Morrisseau's life.
There I saw those 2 unusual pictures standing on the floor, and when I asked McDougall about them, he said, oh yes, you can have them for $5 if you want them. I was very much drawn. I felt there's something mysterious, mystical about this young man, Norval.
Morrisseau formed a powerful bond with Esther and her husband, Joseph Weinstein, a physician who had also been trained as an artist in Paris.
I admired very much his belief in himself, and at the same time was fascinated by the quality, the artistic quality of Norval's work, which was outstanding from the very beginning. We had a number of etchings by Picasso, And he would look at the line drawings and stand in awe and look at them and look at them. We bought everything he produced, and we enabled him to live from what we provided.
By 1962, his art had grown stronger, but he was still struggling to make ends meet. Morrisseau needed a promoter, a publicist. Toronto gallery owner Jack Pollock became known as the man who discovered Morrisseau.
I didn't discover him, he discovered me. In those days, I owned a very small gallery, and the Ontario government hired me to teach drawing and painting. I arrived in one village called Beardmore, and I immediately was very impressed. I saw the works, and I couldn't believe the design. And the rest, I guess, is history.
Remember his name. It's Norval Morrisseau, a 31-year-old Ojibwe painter whose works were publicly displayed for the first time last week. They liked what they saw and snapped up all of his 35 pictures for a total of $4,000.
He came to a concrete jungle for the first time, was alternately shy and proud and angry and nervous.
But I don't like to be honored. I don't want everybody to think, well, here's Norval Morrisseau, the great medicine man or artist. I don't want them to think that way of me. I want them just to think as I am.
What are you?
An Indian.
Morrisseau was suddenly famous, but his personal life would soon begin to unravel. Norval Morrisseau is frail and ill with Parkinson's disease, but he returns once more to the city where he sold his works, made his name, and lived an extravagant life. During his Toronto years, the artist grew in startling new directions. He dropped the traditional earth tones in favor of exuberant new colors that stirred patrons and dazzled a new generation of native artists.
It was a turning point in my life in the arts. It was just an incredible revelation to me. It's the way the colors speak. Culturally, there's a recognition of where that comes from, how it feeds your spirit. When you're confronted by those pieces, it's absolutely mesmerizing for me as an Indigenous person in terms of what those colors do and how they speak and how they project their power.
As Morrisseau grew famous, he began to flaunt a new lifestyle. He spent less time with his wife and children and appeared in public in the company of handsome young men.
Sexually, he's being extremely explorative, dangerously experimental, I suppose.
Norval sees no reason why he should apologize for anything sexual. He made it very clear to me that he is neither gay, straight, nor bisexual. Everybody can be all of that, from Norval's point of view. He didn't just paint erotic pieces. Norval also carved sculptures of penises, which he would show freely in his studio. This was inspiration to him. Norval is just like any other person. We all have our addictions. Well, this is a birch bar scroll. This is just like a Tibetan prayer, where Norval has written out a prayer of the things that he would like. And the first thing, it starts with money, then it goes to sex, then it goes to car, then it goes to a doctor with medicine, and then it goes to him being happy with a glass in front of himself.
But booze was no longer enough. Now Morrisseau was experimenting with hard drugs. When he was offered $3,000 to paint a few canvases during a native summit, he scoffed at the offer of mere money.
My assistant said to me, he wants to be paid. He doesn't want cash. He wants to be paid in a certain way. And I said, you've got to be kidding.
Morrisseau wanted to be paid in cocaine.
Norval realizes that it's not a deal. And Norval walked by with his paintings and just called me everything under the sun, you know, and he was obviously very angry at me, and I knew why.
Morrisseau even alienated his closest friend and ally, gallery owner Jack Pollock. The artist wanted someone who would bankroll his new habits.
Oh, the mafia. Well, I thought they treated him well. I didn't know for sure who was paying for the hotel room, but I would go and see him, and he was there for months.
In the early 80s, Morrisseau's new agent was Albert Volpe, a Toronto mobster and casino operator with a touching interest in art. And they had a deal. Volpe took care of Morrisseau's needs and vices, but Volpe owned all he painted.
Things were going well. But then, Norval being Norval, a free spirit, he got itchy.
After about 6 months, what at first might have seemed like a golden cage began to feel like a trap. Morrisseau quit and left town.
He went out into the woods, way out in northern Ontario, and cleaned himself.
This is what's called sweetgrass among the native people.
Morrisseau often returned for healing and strength to his native traditions. And he maintained he was a shaman whose artwork had curative powers.
Many times people come up to me and say, Norval, I thank you very much for healing me. I thank you very much for helping me. I thank you very much for doing this. I have never seen those people. What did it? The painting.
But Morrisseau's art couldn't heal the artist, and it wouldn't help the man who made him famous. Without Morrisseau, Jack Pollock went broke and shut down his gallery. Pollock was penniless and sick when he lamented in his memoirs, "If I were to die tomorrow, the single most important thing people would remember me for is the discovery of Norval Morrisseau." Pollock died of AIDS in 1992, still puzzling over a broken friendship.
I know him better than any other living human being, I think, on the face of the earth. And I still don't know him.
Without the bond with his agent Jack Pollock, Norval Morrisseau drifted from Thunder Bay to Jasper to Southern California. But it was in the streets of Vancouver that he hit rock bottom. He painted and lived outdoors, and even slept in the streets. He sold his work to a local gallery to pay for the next round of boozing.
After a big drunk, I do much better work, and which I do because I'm trying to build myself up again, and I paint the most marvelous work. And then finally, when the month is up, I'll take the bottle again.
In 1987, actually, when I met Norval, he was on the streets for about 6 months.
At 21, Gabor Vadas was a street kid with a grade 10 education and no fixed address.
I just walked around and bummed around. I had no job, and I was just a lifeless person walking around in the streets of Vancouver.
Then a chance encounter.
When he passed by, first I thought he was a monk. As I got closer, I noticed that it wasn't a monk at all, and that he was drunk, very, very drunk. And one of the first things he asked me was, what would you like more than anything in the world? I couldn't be dishonest with this guy, and what I really wanted was a father. He told me shortly after that I remind him of his family. We formed a bond immediately.
The bond seems just as strong today, almost 2 decades after that first meeting.
I felt accepted for the first time in my life. And I spent some time with Norval, and he bought me coffee, and he took me to a Japanese restaurant. I was really amazed. Where's this guy get his money from? All he did was get into a wealthy section of town. People would recognize him, and the money came to him. Norval was called Super Tramp because he was a super tramp. He was like the top of the profession. He barely had to put his hand out, but he did. I seen him do that. I seen him.
Gabor got Morrisseau off the streets. They shared an apartment in Vancouver, and life rolled along smoothly for a couple of months.
This used to be a typical day for Norval. To come to Chinatown, get some fruits, get some vegetables. This was a place, too, where Norval would feel comfortable with his drinking. And in Chinatown, for instance, you can find ginseng brandy and buy it from any grocery store. So it's an easy source of a quick drink. And then one day he just decided to put the paintbrush down and just start drinking. I'd known that he's a drunk, and I'd known that he's had problems. But I didn't know the degree of it. It was a case a day. Norval could drink tons and tons of bottles of whiskey and still function very well and crawl around if he had to get more. He'd say, well, I'm not ready to stop right now, man, but I'll stop in a week or two when I'm finished my drunk.
Yeah, I'm going to stop drinking right now today. Maybe I'll have another drink to get me off the edge. The edge.
I pleaded with Norval to stop drinking. And I even went down to the street and hung around with him all the time, everywhere he went. It got to a point where I really couldn't hang around with him. And then I'd come downtown and look for him and try to find him. In some cases I did, in some cases I didn't. And on occasions when I did find him, I was just heartbroken. Norval's always lived in the separate reality ever since he was young.
Here is a man in the gutter, drunk and all this, so confused and lost. But the man who's suffering on the physical side cannot be compared to the man that's inside. The one that's inside, which we call soul, is a very highly developed soul. Don't forget, I'm still a human being.
I just couldn't see him destroying himself like this. And he just wouldn't listen. He just wouldn't hear me. Maybe there was a chord that struck with me because my biological father died down here on the streets. And he used to hang around these same areas. And of course, when I seen Norval drinking, I could see a reflection of my own bloodline being down here and getting down and out. And maybe that made me stick closer to him, to really try and work the best I could, to get him to stop drinking, to get him to come home, to get him to be peaceful.
Morrisseau listened to Gabor's pleading, struggled to change, and even gave Gabor the fatherly attention his own children had always wanted.
My name is Alfred David Morrisseau. My father is a world-renowned artist, but me, I'm an artist too, so I'm just doing my own stuff, you know.
David is Morrisseau's oldest son, the one who most closely resembles him in every way.
They say, you know, you look like your father, like when you're his age. I wish I had more time to spend with my father, like when I was growing up, like teenager-wise, you know.
David was just 9 years old when Morrisseau left the family in 1970. But what happened haunts him still.
So this is what my father did, like he'll drink like maybe 40 ounces a day, and he'll just drink it like water. Sometimes he'll be gone for days, like maybe he'll go out drinking and then he'll come back drunk, and then then I'll see my parents get into argument and all that. So sometimes I would be afraid, and we'll go maybe hide in a corner or something.
David survives by selling his paintings to an auction house. He's 42. He's been in Toronto for the last 7 years. In summertime, he often lives in vacant industrial land.
I heard my father was homeless for a while too in Vancouver, sleeping on the street and sleeping in parks. I remember they did a thing on him, and they're following my dad around right into this bush, and my father's looking for his bottle of wine.
I lost the bottle too. I don't know where I put it. 40 ounces.
I was sober for a while. I've decided to jump off the wagon last year. I mean, I'm not shy. I can admit, I do drink. I guess there's a lot of things to kind of parallel. I know my father was in Globe and Mail on April 10, 1998, and I was in Toronto Star April 10, 1998. I was in page 2. Hey, not bad, eh? Page 2, yeah. This painting represents me and my father. I call this Norval and David Morrisseau. When I look at this painting, I feel like I'm working things out. Although this is a painting, but what I'm talking about is the pain thing, the pain thing that he gave me, P-A-I-N, pain thing. So I feel at peace with my father now, we made peace.
David has only seen his father once in the last 20 years. After Gabor Vadas got Norval Morrisseau off the streets, they made plans to start a new life together.
Norval and I had discussed moving away from Vancouver. And we went to the ferry and just drove to Vancouver Island.
They moved from one small town to another until they finally settled in Nanaimo. Gabor became Morrisseau's business manager. And when Gabor started a family, he made sure that Morrisseau was part of it.
Our relationship is so close that when I met my wife and when we had our firstborn child, for a little while there was a lot of happiness and Norval was thrilled. He's very tender. I'd never seen him so tender. And he really felt connected with the idea of us being a family together.
There were a few more binges, but in the warmth of his new family, Morrisseau was finally ready to change.
When I first met Norval, I was intimidated by him because he was so big and so quiet, it seemed. And there was this aura about him. But then once I got to know him and we lived with him, I realized that he's very sweet and very shy. Norval quit drinking when my son was 1 year old. 1991, he dropped it. He had enough, and he hasn't touched a drop since. I think what's important is not how Norval lived his life when he was drunk, but how he lived his life when he was sober. He always had friends over. The coffee pot was always on. Life was peaceful and joyful and full. It seemed like every day was summer with Norval around. Norval was taking care of his health, and so he was feeling good. And so that's why he looked so happy in many of those pictures. He was always working hard on his boyish figure. He'd go on these crazy diets, lemonade diet, wild rice and sardine diet. He had lost some weight and he was looking good. So then he decided he needed to get some teeth, so he went and got some teeth. So that's what that picture is. He got his teeth that day and he's smiling and very proud of himself.
It's been quite a journey for Gabor Vadas, from street kid to Morrisseau's business manager, living a middle-class life thanks to the artist. An average painting sells for $10,000. Large ones go for $80,000 to $100,000. While Morrisseau gave Gabor full control of his assets, Morrisseau's own children have no say over his paintings and property, and that's caused tension over the years.
When Norval and I first got together, Norval turned to me and he said, "You see all this stuff? It's because of you that we were able to do this." So Norval made that very aware to me, that we created this, and because we created this, that I'm deserving of all of it. Whether people like it or not, it doesn't matter.
In 1989, something new for Morrisseau, signing a canvas in Paris. A quarter century after his first gallery opening, Morrisseau finally had international recognition. He was the only Canadian painter invited to this exhibit at the Pompidou Gallery on the 200th anniversary of the French Revolution. Through most of the 90s, he was at the top of his form. Even after falling ill with Parkinson's disease, he kept on filling galleries with new works till the end of the century.
He has touched our spirits and he's moved us. It's quite an occasion for us.
Norval, thank you very much for being here, for all the work you've done in your lifetime.
Morrisseau launched an art movement, the Woodland Indian School, that's changed the face of Aboriginal art in North America.
I am told by various different group of Indian painters, they call me I'm the grandfather. Instead of being Grandma Moses, I suppose I'm Grandfather Morrisseau. And they tell me that I have opened these doors for them.
For natives, Morrisseau is the bridge between traditional art and modern Western painting.
Up to that point in time, we were not participating. Our art was done basically as tourist art. It was insignificant until Morrisseau comes along. We are artists.
Morrisseau enjoyed fame, but never strayed from his mission, using art to preserve his Ojibwe heritage.
I think Norval could care less what anybody thought about any painting he painted. And he never painted something and said, "Oh, what do you think?" No, that would be beneath him. Every painting that he painted was for himself.
He's one of the most collected painters in Canadian history. But it all happened on his own terms.
A lot of people tell me I must be the happiest person there is. I believe that. That's how I managed to live all this life. This is Norval's residence.
Hi, how are you doing?
It was a big decision for us to say, well, we will put him here where he can get help.
All right, on.
In 1996, Morrisseau had a stroke, and by the dawn of the millennium, he could no longer paint.
Been a dream about blueberries.
Oh, wow.
His speech is quite slurred, yet I understand him very clearly. But we speak with our eyes also. Sometimes things that aren't said are said very loud in silence. Inside Norval, he's feeling everything, joy, sadness. And it's funny because to Norval, he's still 35 years old. He's still able to paint, he's still able to create, and yet physically he can't. Can you sit up a little bit straight? That's
His
perfect.
body is stiff and spent, but Morrisseau does not feel trapped within it. For decades, the visionary shaman has told friends that his soul can leave his body at will and travel far, far away.
Norval goes anywhere. See, we don't know about this stuff yet. But when Norval talks about it, I believe him.
Anywhere he wants to go, any plane, any level. If he wants to go visit Jesus, he can go visit Jesus. If he wants to go visit his mother, he can go visit his mother. When he visits her, he says he can smell roses, and there are roses everywhere.
Oh, I have visions many times. Sometimes it lasts for 12 hours and things like this. But many times today I understand it is actually soul traveling I was doing without even ever being aware of it.
Many generations from now, Norval Morrisseau will be recognized as the Canadian artist. It'll be Norval Morrisseau's work that'll be studied and that'll be looked at.